everyone, hope you're all having a wonderful day, and today we're going to be going over a new rogue build. And I know what you're probably thinking, Ozzy, what are you doing, bro? Season 1 is literally a couple days away. What are you trying to make me do another build for? Now I have decided to call this build the Alchemical Rogue build because we're cooking up some of those concoctions and we're throwing them at the enemy. Now I know there's meant to be a friggin' essay coming out about the patch notes, apparently 6,600 words worth of patch notes. Now a lot of this could be subject to change, but I doubt it. Now this could just be my copium brain talking, but this isn't like a broken build by any means necessary. It's just a lot of good synergy with aspects that make it work so well. Like, it isn't busted, we're not doing crazy amount of damage, we just do decent damage and we're able to sustain ourselves through high nightmare dungeons. Now this is a lot like my Frostbitten Rogue build. We're only changing a few things around it, mainly skills and one aspect to actually get this to work. So if you have done that build, do not worry, you will have everything set up for this build. Unless you are playing Rogue in Season 1, you will have to obviously go out and get all the aspects again. Unfortunately, I can't take all the credit for this build. I have seen a lot of people theory crafting stuff on Reddit, and I have seen a lot of other YouTubers kind of using the Frostbitten aspect, and I've been kind of using their ideas and putting it into one idea here. So again, I can't take all the credit for this. I feel like it's just a massive community effort, but I haven't seen too many people do build video, and if someone has, I do apologize for re-uploading the same content. Now just a quick overview of the build. We are playing with a lot of CC, which is very good for pushing high nightmare dungeons. The enemies can't hit you if they're all crowd controlled. And like my Frostbitten Rogue build, we are playing around with a lot of chilled. Instead of using caltrops, I have switched that out for the Pentanate Greave boots. We also get some really cool synergy with some aspects that let us get up to 7 skills. So that means we can take advantage of Dark Shroud without having to actually have Dark Shroud on our skill bar, which is going to make our rogue extremely tanky now. The fact that we can always have Dark Shroud out without actually having Dark Shroud on a hotbar is huge. Since adding Dark Shroud on, I've had no trouble pushing high 60s and even low 70s. Now I feel like the basic and the core skill are pretty much the same for every rogue build. Everyone's taking Puncture because Puncture is insanely OP. We have more reason to use Puncture, and we'll get into that when we get into our gear. Next up, we do have Twisting Blade.
Daring today, aren't we?
Now, if you have come from my Frostbitten Rogue build or you have watched it, we are still using Cold Imbuement and Shadow Imbuement. Now for the things that are actually different, I am now taking Smoke Grenades. Smoke Grenades really good. We're able to get instant CC on enemies. We can spread that with Shared Misery. Now we are also using Dark Shroud, but we are getting this from our aspect. I'll explain that more as we get into it. And now the last skill that we are taking is Concealment. Now Concealment is heavily underrated, same as Smoke Grenade. I always overlook Concealment because I always thought Shadow Step was just a little bit better because it wasn't on such a long cooldown. But Concealment, when you're pushing high nightmare dungeons, it's kind of needed because you're able to then run through enemies without getting CC because you're unstoppable for the whole 4 seconds. You can go straight to the elites and you can just nuke them down, since the elites are the enemies that have all the awful affixes that are just going to wreck you in nightmare dungeons. You can just deal with them instantly without having to worry about any enemy. You just run through the pack, delete them, and then deal with all the ads, which aren't really too much of an issue. Which is the main reason that this build is very strong, is you're just able to single out enemies that are the most annoying because of Concealment. Now I'm definitely not going to go over the skill tree. I literally just did this 4 days ago. I will put in the link in the description, and also maybe I'll pin a comment as well. To the max roll build planner, or like the build guide, I'll set one up for this build so you guys can just copy that. Save having to watch this video a million times, and so you don't have to listen to me talk about the same skills again. And because I am going to put the build planner in the description, I'm not going to go over this too much. I'm only going to be covering what is actually new compared to my Frostbitten Rogue build. We're not taking anything in the agility section anymore. Still got weapon mastery. I think I had one point in concussive. I've taken this out of there and put it into tri attacks. Now that we are using Smoke Grenade, we're getting daze out more often. We critically strike those daze enemies. They get knocked down. If Shared Misery procs, all the enemies get knocked down. Very good to keep CC up on the enemy to make sure we're doing maximum amount of damage and not taking any damage. And this is where it all gets different. We obviously are now taking a lot in the subterfuge section, seeing as this is so just OP for pushing high nightmare dungeons. It's basically meta, if you will. So we are taking Dark Shroud. We're able to get this with our Umbrious aspect, which I will mention when we get into our gear. So we are still putting points here, so we can get advanced Dark Shroud, have a 10% chance for those Dark Shrouds to not be consumed. Arguably a really underrated one is the Subverting Dark Shroud, which is every Dark Shroud we have, we gain 4% increased movement speed. Now, because we have Dependent Greaves, we're already moving pretty quick because it has movement speed increase on the boots itself. But now we're able to get another 20% increased movement speed, which is how we're able to get away with not using dash or shadow step, because we're already running really quick. In fact, we can run faster than people running on a horse. Obviously, concealment, not too much to talk about concealment. Obviously, we're going stealth. We get unstoppable for 4 seconds. We can move through all the enemies. We are taking enhanced stealth, so we get 40 energy when we're into concealment. So if there's ever a time where maybe you're trying to nuke down an elite and you're just running out of energy, might as well pop concealment if you got it, just to get your energy back so you can finish off the elite faster. And we're taking subverting stealth. I don't think we really need countering stealth where we get a guaranteed critical strike. I think it is better that we make enemies vulnerable, because when we use twisting blades to break stealth, the whole of the twisted blade animation or attack will make enemies vulnerable. It counts for the whole thing. Same reason why you can use subverting stealth with rain of arrows. So if you break stealth with rain of arrows, you'll make all those enemies vulnerable. It's really cool. So that is why we're taking the subverting stealth. And then I've mentioned smoke grenade pretty much to its full extent already, that it's going to daze enemies, and we're going to get 15 times increased damage to those enemies affected by smoke grenade. And then the other one I haven't really talked about is just the countering smoke grenade, where when we deal direct damage to enemies affected by smoke grenade, we have a 25% chance to reduce its cooldown by 1 second, or by 3 seconds if the enemy is vulnerable. This is a lucky hit chance. You can drop this on a fat pack of enemies and you pretty much have a chance to get your smoke grenade instantly back, ready for the next mob of enemies. And that's all that's really different. Everything's remained the same from my last build. Obviously still taking close quarter combat. I did take the 1 point out of Adrenaline Rush, so we could fill out Dark Shroud. So if you guys did use my Frostbitten Rogue build, that's kind of the changes I did make. Now moving on over to the gear. Before we get into that, I'll just quickly show you guys my stats. Not too much has changed from my last build like 4 days ago, but I'll just quickly go over it. My dexterity 836, really good. It's going to increase our skill damage, and intelligence, another one you want to focus on because it is increasing our critical strike chance. We do have 12.6% attack speed bonus, and another thing to note is that we have 37% critical strike chance. Now when we are using it with the Frostbitten aspect, we have a chance double to our critical strike chance to instantly freeze enemies. So we're nearly getting an 80% chance to freeze enemies, which is just super solid. We're able to get CC out almost instantly, and then we can spread it with shared misery. Here, critical strike damage with imbuement, this stacks on top of this, remember that, and we're taking 2 imbuement. So when we critical strike with imbuement, very strong. We are stacking a lot of vulnerable damage, and then we are stacking a lot of damage to crowd controls, since we are prioritizing getting a lot of CC out, and then we can do way more damage to those crowd controlled enemies. Now for the gear, we are still running Disobedience. On our chest plate, we now have Shared Misery here. Now the only thing that's different, I did get a new chest piece, and I have re-roll with more damage reduction. It is just better pushing higher nightmare dungeons than trying to stack too much damage on your actual bits of armor. I do have the Frostbitten aspect on my gloves now. The main thing you want to focus on with your glove is just to prioritize critical strike chance, attack speed, and also your ranks of twisting blade or whatever core skill you're actually using. My legs, I have put the My aspect on here now. Now I was playing around with the cheat aspect on my previous build, but you don't really need it now that we are taking the Umbrious aspect on our necklace. When we critically strike with a marksman skill, we have a 90% chance to gain a free Dark Shroud. So this is how we're able to keep Dark Shroud up nearly all the time without having it on our actual skill bar. Now you're probably wondering, well, how do you keep it up 100% of the time if you have to critically strike and then also get a lucky hit with your marksman skill, i.e. a puncture? Well, it's because of a lovely thing called the accelerating aspect. You put this on your bow, and when we critically strike with our core skills, we're going to be gaining 46% increased attack speed. And because we are taking close quarter combat, we get an extra 20% attack speed on top of that. So that means we can get up to 70% attack speed, which means our puncture, which is already throwing out pretty quickly, is now 70% faster, which is how we're able to keep our Dark Shroud up nearly 100% of the time. So that means we now have Blade Dancer on our sword. We also still have Icy Alchemist on our other sword. We still have the Surprise aspect on our ring, and we also have the Expectant aspect on our other ring. So when we're attacking with our basic skill, which we need to do to build up Dark Shroud, we're going to be boosting our core skill damage by 10% up to 30%. We are still running combo points. Now I don't want to sound like a friggin' broken record here, but I have obviously already covered the Paragon board in my previous build like a couple of days ago. So I will leave the link in the description to this build over on Maxroll, so you guys can go check that out. So I'm not going to go over all the Paragon board. I will just put it all in that build planner, and you guys can just copy it off that, because it is pretty much the same as my Frostbitten Rogue build. In fact, nothing has changed. The only thing I do want to kind of test out, and maybe you guys have tested this out, you might know the answer to this. I just want to know if the turf aspect is going to be better than the chip aspect. Now, the chip aspect is giving us physical damage, and also physical damage increases the damage an enemy takes from 1% up to 10 times, which I think that's the main thing I'm like gonna miss. But the turf aspect is gonna have a much higher damage increase than the chip one when it's leveled up all the way to 21. But we also get 10% damage reduction from close enemies. I'm not sure if that's needed. Is the chip glyph actually better? I'm not sure, maybe you guys might know that, but I am definitely gonna get turf to 15, and then I'm gonna try it out and just kind of see which one's better. And for anyone that is asking, I have tried Frost Feeder. Frost Feeder is good. We don't really need the 20% increased chill effect, although it is really nice, but we're not always going to get this damage increase. Yeah, we're chilling enemies all the time with Pentic Greaves, but we're not going to be getting this bonus all the time, because when they get frozen, they're not chilled anymore, they're frozen. And since we're freezing enemies so often, I feel like this gets a little wasted and we get the physical damage, or maybe even the turf close range damage more often. And that's basically from me, guys. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. I didn't want it to be too long, because I literally just did a build video like the other day. This has to be one of the best rogue builds I've tried / put together. I'm able to blitz through high 60s and low 70s with ease, with absolute ease. It's just, you almost put your brain on autopilot and you can just do it. And again, I'm sorry for bombarding you guys with builds right before the start of season 1. Appreciate all the love and support as always, guys. And until next time, stay safe. Peace out.